Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, episode number 164, The Omen, the classic 1976, I will say, supernatural horror film, starring Gregory Peck, Remick, David Warner, and Billie Whitelaw. With me to discuss this classic from 1976 is my friend, the one and only, Mr. Ross Amico. Ross, welcome.
Ave Satani, Roy.
I should have said co-host too. Welcome, Ross. How are you? How you doing tonight?
Doing well, Roy. How about you?
I'm okay. It's been a long week, Ross. It's been a long week. But we are here. We are entering Halloween month. Well, we've actually entered Halloween month, and we're actually almost halfway through it, which is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, it's October 14th already, which means we've almost got half the month behind us already.
Yeah, I got to put on the brakes. Too many movies, too many books to read.
Yeah, I know. But it's a great time. It's very crisp out there. It's very Halloweenish, I should say. So it's yeah, so we're gonna delve into that. And what better way than to discuss The Omen? But before we do, I want to welcome our viewers. I see, and before actually I do this, I'm going to give this a plug first, and then we'll wrap up with the plug. I want to thank everybody that is not only viewing us on Facebook, but is also viewing us on YouTube as well as Twitter. And again, thank you for your Facebook likes and follows. Thank you for your subscriptions on YouTube. And also thank you for your subscriptions on Twitter. They really help and they are very much appreciated. So with that, I see Dennis Chevalier is joining us. Welcome, Dennis. He's joining us from Canada. I also see Bill Scarato's out there. Bill, welcome to the show. Bill is actually joining us on YouTube. So thanks for doing that, Bill. And I see a Facebook user out there saying evening, and I'm going to assume that that's Randy Lee because I don't have your name there, if that is Randy. So hello to you, Randy. And if it's somebody else, just please let us know. Martin is joining us from New York. Welcome, Martin. Jeff Rubel is joining us from out west. Welcome, Jeff. And Vince is joining us from Phillipsburg, Lopakong, New Jersey. Vince, thanks for being out there. And Vince is also joining us via YouTube. So thank you for that, Vince. And again, our best wishes and thoughts for Vince as he's continuing to recover. And hang in there, pal. You're doing good. So just keep progressing. Just want to say that. Also see that Sue is joining us from Massachusetts. Welcome, Sue. And the Facebook user is saying, okay, who picked this film? Holy hell. Was it scary? Pun intended. I don't know who that is, though. I would almost think that that's Matt, but I'm not sure. I see Dorothy Sadzatek is joining us. Dorothy, welcome to the show. She's saying, sorry, I haven't tuned in for a while. I'm here tonight. No, we appreciate you being out there, Dorothy, and thank you for that. Joel Barnes is actually joining us as well, too. Welcome, Joel. Good to see you out there. He's joining us from, I believe, Joel, I think you're in Massachusetts, I want to say. I know you're in the Northeast, and Joel is a friend from the Star Trek set tour. So welcome, Joel. And Randy Lee is saying, wait, does it still call me Facebook user? It does, Randy, but that's okay. Matt Anthony is in the house, Ross, and he is joining us via Facebook. He's saying, Roy, cancel that wedding and come drop our Oktoberfest shopping day. Oh my God, Matt. Oh, Matt. You can always count on you, Matt. And I also see Gwen is out there. Gwen, my friend from work, welcome. And I'd like to say Gwen is now officially married to Jerry. Welcome, Gwen and Jerry. Great to see you out there. This is their first attendance of the show since they've tied marital bliss, and they've been married for a total of 6 days. So congratulations to you, Gwen and Jerry. Great to see you out there. I also see Linda's joining us via YouTube. Welcome, Linda. Don Bethman is out there too. Don is joining us from Delaware. Welcome, Don. And Vince is saying that that's my cousin. Yay, Dorothy. So I think I've accounted for everybody. If anybody else comes in, we will welcome to the show. But yeah, let's get started. Ross, The Omen. Let's just delve right into it. Holy mackerel. This movie still holds up, even since it's 1976 film.
Yeah.
Is that all you got, Ross? Yeah.
Good night. Good night, folks.
Before we go into that, Gwen just commented, "Thanks for the shout out, Roy. Thank gosh you're not doing Hellraiser. Lots of laughs."
Yeah. Pinhead.
Pinhead, exactly. Did you, even before we start talking about The Omen, did you realize that movie Hellraiser is from 1987? That's a 35-year-old movie, Ross.
Yeah, I remember when it came out. That doesn't really startle me.
No, I actually never saw that.
No, I never saw the movie either. No, I just remember all the trailers for the sequels and
yeah. But
and
Dan Worth, who might be out there tonight, he came through and he was talking about movies at work, and he's a horror king, and it came up about that movie, and then what happened was he was starting to give the plot away, and then he's like, "Did everybody see this movie?" And I was like, I didn't see it. So what happened was he started telling Gwen about it, and he was like, letting her know all the details and everything. So folks, we're here tonight to talk about Hellraiser. Surprise. I want to give a shout out to Liz. Welcome, Liz. Liz is actually joining us from the UK. Liz, thanks for being out there tonight. Also, the Hague is in the house, and he's saying Phils are winning. Maybe this show is an omen.
I didn't check the sky for a comet. It makes me feel old now.
Joel, I know what you're saying. He's saying everything makes me feel old now. Don is saying I just watched the new Hellraiser last night.
Oh, a new one?
Yeah. I didn't even realize that there was a new one out there.
There you go.
And Gwen is saying, just to note, I will never actually watch that movie. What, Hellraiser or The Omen, Gwen?
I'm gonna tear your soul apart.
Anyway,
Hellraiser or Pinhead, not me.
Pinhead, yeah, exactly.
That was Pinhead talking.
Of course it was. Hey, I also see Lou is joining us. Lou is also joining us via YouTube. Welcome, Lou, and he's joining us from Rhode Island. Lou. Thanks for being out there, Lou. Oh, I knew one was going to say both movies. And Martin is saying no comments. NASA just pushed it out of the way.
Yeah. But I didn't even think about it when they were doing the prophecy from Revelation, the faux prophecy that's not really from Revelation. That, probably in the tail of the comet was a bunch of naked French vampires from space.
That sounds like last week's show, Ross. Are you caught in the causality?
All roads, Roy. I'm always drawing connections.
Wait a minute. You mean Life Force, the movie that stars Patrick Stewart?
Right.
Anyway, that joke is getting old.
Yeah.
So regarding The Omen, though, in all seriousness, though, this movie, I had not watched it in some time, and it honestly really holds up very well. It's a suspense thriller. It's not, it is a horror film per se, but not in the traditional sense, or the sense that the way horror movies are made today. And it just goes to show you that with a lot of suspense, a lot of lighting, a lot of excellent music, you really can have horror, and you don't need all the blood and the gore and the guts.
Well, that's true. It's got that going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I may be in the minority. I don't know, because it seems like a lot of people were reacting on the Facebook page saying it's like the scariest movie ever made and everything. But it really didn't do much for me. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's an entertaining movie, but it's not a scary movie for me.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's, a matter of you have to see it when you're young enough, or if I'm not, I don't know. Like, if, I suppose if I were maybe a Catholic priest, I'd be horrified. but to me, it's just like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's, the set pieces are great. You remember them forever. I haven't seen it, like you said, I haven't seen it for decades, but I remember all the deaths, I remember all the set pieces, and they're effectively done. But it's no Exorcist.
Yeah. Well,
The Exorcist really, really hit me hard, and that's like one of those things where, this movie's not going to make you sleep with the light. I'm talking for about me, I'm not talking about anybody else. It's not going to make me sleep with the light on or give me nightmares or freak me out. But maybe it's just because, you don't even need an Antichrist. The world's coming to an end anyway. So, so what's the point?
I'm gonna jump into the comments section.
Where's the horror?
Jeff Rubel saying, "Come on, Ross, get with it." And to be fair, he wrote that 2 minutes ago, but I just thought I'd throw that up now. I think Randy Lee saying, so it said that this entire movie series was cursed: lightning strikes, animal attacks, plane crashes, bombs, car accidents, etc.
Yeah, one beheading.
Yeah, and
And not
Matt
David,
saying,
not David
I will
Warner.
tear off your head and yeah, down to your neck.
Wrong movie, Matt. That
And
would
I want to
be
welcome Colin. He's joining us from the UK as well. He's saying, doubt that they would have got away with loads of blood and gore back then, even if they had wanted to. Hence the deleted scene I sent to you.
yeah.
Yeah, good point, Colin. Very good point in regards to that.
Well, they had to cut, you know, a certain death scene in there. One of the most spectacular death scenes. They had to shoot it, edit it a certain way so it wouldn't get an X rating.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think it's, you know, I don't know. I don't think it's a horrific scene, but maybe I'm jaded.
Sorry, I think Linda's got your back. She's saying so true, Ross.
Yeah, because to me, it's not a horror movie. It's that's what it is. I got scarred by a Mega Man when I was 5, and therefore, everything had to reach a certain level of horror for me. But it's more of a like a Brian De Palma movie. It's like an Alfred Hitchcock movie by way of Brian De Palma for me. It's more like a suspense film, a thriller, than it is a horror movie for me. But I mean, that doesn't mean other people aren't going to be freaked out by Son of the Devil. It's just I don't really go in for that too much.
Well, Martin is jumping in and he's saying the scariest movie out there is Santa Claus Conquers the Martian.
Yeah.
Getting cereal. Hey, I want to welcome Pam McPherson. Pam, thanks for joining the show. Hope you're doing well. And she's saying that was scary. Yeah, it I don't know. I think Ross is right though too. I mean, everybody's affected differently by it, and from different expectations, different things that we've seen. For me personally, I saw this movie. I didn't see this when it originally came out. I saw it, I believe it was on Prism, and it would have been probably the later 70s. So I was probably like around maybe 13 or 14.
Right.
And it held the suspense aspect for me. I mean, it definitely, jolted me. But I can understand, especially if you're giving comparison to the film of The Exorcist, because I mean that movie is terrifying, and we will be covering The Exorcist, folks. We're going to do that next year. We're going to celebrate it for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, you were going back and forth which one to do, and it's really apples and oranges, because Exorcist is about a possession, and this is about the son of the devil, the devil's spawn. So is it apples and oranges? But this whole thing, this was the beginning of kind of our big budget, major studio, satanic occult blockbuster movies. I mean, we have Rosemary's Baby, had The Exorcist, and this is the one that really cemented it.
Right.
And it kind of grew out of The Exorcist, I think, because they started kicking around the ideas. The other two movies were based on novels. Rosemary's Baby is based on an Ivor Levin book, and Exorcist, of course, William Peter Blatty, and they're both, bestsellers. But this one was that they came up with on their own. They said, okay, let's make a movie, about Revelation, and we'll put our own spin on it. And this discussion took place, I think, shortly after the producer had seen The Exorcist. He was chatting with somebody who's credited as the religious advisor or something on the film. I don't know if he was a priest or what he was, but I looked at his IMDb credits, and all of his credits either have to do with the Omen, different documentaries or what have you, or on other religious films. So, he may have been a priest. He may have just been, somebody who's fascinated by the subject, but they were talking about Revelation and how they could flesh out the story about the son of Satan, which, by the way, the Antichrist is not necessarily the son of Satan. This is something that everybody thinks because of this movie. But, the movie it's a pop cultural touchstone. And we take a lot of things we see in the movie as, this is what Revelation is, because of that's that's how they presented it to the public. And we wouldn't have any heavy metal bands without the 666,
Well, in regards to that too, because a lot of the quotes that they were saying that were said throughout the movie, a lot of it was just written for the movie to add to your point.
Right.
And in regards to the 666, that was something that gave the public awareness where they probably wouldn't, and it became something part of our culture. I mean, the funny thing is, I think it was just a couple of years ago. I'm typing on I think it was Messenger at work, just to send like a number or something or a date. And I put for the number, the reference 666. And what happened was it transferred it into it became an icon of the devil. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, how did this happen? Literally, it was in the Messenger. And I erased it. I did it again, and literally, the triple sixes disappeared, and then there was the devil right there, and I'm like,
it's
wow.
the curse, Roy. It's the curse. Now everybody's gonna try this.
It's true. It really happened.
It's gonna turn into one of those Japanese horror films.
It's gonna go viral, Ross. It's gonna go viral. Why did this episode of The Omen go viral? Because I said suggest typing 666 into Messenger and see what happens.
There you go. And then we'll say Bloody Mary so many times in front of the mirror, and yeah,
it's a true story though. Some of the comments that are coming through. Let me see here. Christian is saying, Christian, welcome. Christian is joining us from Canada. He says, "Hey Roy, hey Ross, I have an Omen story. We will.
Let's hear it."
Yeah, we're going to come back to that in 1 minute, Christian. We want to hear that. Brennan is also joining us. Welcome, Brennan. He's saying Donner said in the commentary that they sold it to Peck as a psychological thriller. Yeah, and interesting enough, too, Gregory Peck actually, when he did this film, he actually went a little lower in his salary. He did this movie for $250,000, but what he did do is he actually got a cut of the profits, which was 10% gross, which when this movie made over $60 million, it was I believe at that time, it was his the most he had ever made from any of his movies. So he did very well with that.
It was a nice paycheck, and it revitalized his career.
Yeah.
After because
he was pretty much retired, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was thinking about just hanging it up, but and he didn't really want to do this movie so much either. But he trusted Donner, and his own son had just committed suicide a couple of years before this, or the year before actually. So it's kind of like not as a play on words, but it kind of exercises demons to work on this film, which is interesting because they call it a psychological thriller. But as I'm watching the thing, I'm thinking there's like really no psychological resonance. There's no mythic resonance. There's no biblical resonance. That's why I have a problem with the movie. It just doesn't make sense. It's like in the best horror movies, there's often a traumatic event at the beginning of the film, and that kind of really sets off the rest of the movie's kind of a projection of, like, if somebody loses a child, or if there's always a traumatic accident at the beginning of these horror movies, and then the whole thing is kind of a projection of the person's psychological state, whether you're in a haunted house or if it's about an unseen or some kind of menace that's pursuing you or something like that. Because then there's kind of that other dimension to it. And in fact, I was just going to say, Donner, when he received the assignment, he wanted to direct it such that you didn't know for sure that he was the son of Satan. That it could have been just Gregory Peck, the family's perception.
Right.
The studio wanted to just go straight with it. Yeah, go ahead.
He was setting them up he was setting the audience up. You're right, absolutely, and that you would be guessing back and forth. Now, the one thing you said in regards to there being a tragedy, they did bring out, though, in the very beginning, that how much that Catherine wanted to have a child, and and that was something that
absolutely no, you're right, absolutely. But the problem is they didn't connect it, because there's a film, Don't Look Now. I mentioned it before. It's a Nicholas Roeg movie. We just did A Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yes.
And he did this film with Donald Sutherland and Judy Christie. But at the beginning of the film, they've lost their child. There's a tragic death, and they're both deeply affected by this. Lee Remick's character doesn't even know her child's dead.
Right.
So there's really none of that. She suspects later on in the movie that she says, "Oh, I don't think this is my child," or whatever, to her psychiatrist. But there's none of that sorrow that's hanging on her. And Peck seems pretty happy-go-lucky until the raving Irish priest shows up and is at the embassy and starts telling him to drink the blood of Christ. What? That's the thing. It's like, if you want to sell your case, Do you want to go in and just start screaming and saying things at somebody, or do you want to say, listen, you're not going to believe this, but this is what's going on, and just kind of like have a rational conversation with him. But instead he blows in there and
Well, I agree with you. I mean, in regards to that, I mean, he should have been a little bit more subdued, because I think he would have, what do they say? You'll get a lot further with a carrot instead of a stick. And actually, that's a quote, folks, from a Star Trek episode that I just
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Metamorphosis. But anyway, the point is that when he goes in there, you're kind of rooting for him to get through to Gregory Peck, but his delivery. But I think part of that too is they're trying to show that he's so scared and erratic, and he's just all over the place, that he doesn't know how to communicate, and he's just like, it's like a last resort. It's almost like he knows he's going to die, and he knows it's coming, because when he's walking outside, he's holding onto his cross, and he's just like looking around at different points. And what I find hysterical is, with every time he turns, David Warner's there with the camera, and he's snapping his picture. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't get like, terrified by that and think that, maybe there was something up with David Warner, because he's like, Father,
Yeah. Because David Warner is way creepier than any son of Satan. It's so true.
But anyway, so that I see where you're coming from with that. And I think that they were giving the backstory in regards to Lee Remick, but you're not feeling it so much from her, because you're not having, you haven't gone through that situation with her.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not
she
even
doesn't know she lost the child, though. She never knows she lost the child.
Well, no, but she had failed pregnancies before that, and they did bring that out, I think. And
she did lose the fetus later,
right. But they're building upon the conversation that he's having with the priest, that she's been through so much, and this will destroy her because she's always wanted a baby. And then what had happened was she had those miscarriages that occurred. So the backstory is there, but it's not to the point where it's happening with her. So I get what you're saying, and
I'll give you that. It's not as creepy as Don't Look Now.
Well, there you go.
That's all I have to say. Good night, everybody. But yeah, I mean, this is for you, Damien. No, this is for you. Yeah. But the having a raving half mad priest is also a trope of this kind of movie. You can't have a movie about the devil without having a sweaty alcoholic priest.
Well, speaking of numbers,
advertising Star Wars.
That's creepy. That's very creepy.
That's one of the signs of the end of days, John. When you see Star Wars 666 times, especially if it's one of the prequels.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Martin is commenting. So all roads is Peck's grandson is the new Spock in Star Trek. Yes.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, Strange New Worlds. We actually met him up at Ticonderoga. Really nice guy too. It's crazy to think that 45 years have gone by since this fall. Actually, more like 47, because this film was shot in 75. But
Matt made a To Kill a Mockingbird joke there with the Boo Riley. What do you say? Not Boo Radley.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Because Peck played, of course, Atticus Finch. That has resonance. I mean, they get Gregory Peck, who was one of the big actors from the golden age of Hollywood, to come back to fight the son of Satan, and it's just like, oh man, Atticus Finch, he's got to win.
Martin
is MacArthur. Yeah.
Martin is saying you haven't appreciated the Omen until you've seen it in the original Klingon. Ross, to your point about that, now there's and I probably should share it on the show's page, but I was actually watching this interview with Gregory Peck, and it took place in June of 1976, and it was, I'm not sure I think it was called the Cinema Roundtable, and the guy that was conducting the interview, I was even saying to Vince when I was talking to him about this, he could have actually passed for Bill Bixby's brother, and it was a very subdued interview. And he's talking about the movie with him. He's talking about the cast. And Gregory Peck is very articulate of just about how everything came together. He was talking about how it was an international cast. He was saying about the actors that, were in this production were a lot of stage actors too, that were from Britain. First one that immediately comes to mind is Billie Whitelaw, who was playing the nanny. I mean, she was the replacement nanny to the one that winds up hanging herself, who incidentally was Holly Palance, Jack Palance's daughter.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
You didn't look that up. Okay.
So I thought that was kind of cool. But
Yeah,
she,
I think Donner worked with plants. That's why in another movie.
yeah, and that's what happened. He wound up suggesting her, saying because
Okay.
he indicated he was going to be in the UK filming this, and then he was like, "Oh, you got to look up, my daughter." But with Billie Whitelaw, when she actually did her audition, the original intent was that the nanny, who's the replacement nanny, was supposed to be very nice and kind. And this was to tie into what you were saying earlier, that Donna really wanted the audience to think, wait a minute, is this imagination or is this really supernatural? But when Billie Whitelaw did her audition, what she did was she kind of changed the direction of the character to be more malevolent, more creepier, kind of not have the read between the lines, more direct. And
Mm-hmm.
they went with it because she did such a wonderful job with the audition. So I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting how that they changed it.
Oh, she's one of the most. Yeah, I think she's one of the most effective parts of the movie. I mean, the creepy nanny,
Yeah.
but she almost didn't take the part. She was going to back out of the out of doing the movie, but I guess she called late on a Friday or something like that. And nobody picked up, so she had to show up for work on Monday.
Because she was in a play on the West End, I think.
Yeah,
Is
she was. I mean, she was a stage actress, but she
Yeah.
did movies also. She was in Hitchcock's Frenzy. She was in Charlie Bubbles with Albert Finney. She was in Start the Revolution Without Me with Gene Wilder and Donald Sutherland. She played Marie Antoinette. But her main claim to fame is that for 25 years she was Samuel Beckett's muse,
Hmm.
and she was basically in everything that Beckett wrote. For those 25 years until The Omen. Well, I mean, simultaneously with The Omen, because this was still going on, but The Omen is really what gave her broad popularity. What I was amused to find out, though, is she did the voice for Ogra in the Dark Crystal.
Oh, really?
Remember Ogra?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
did
she
not
did the
know
voice
that.
for her. Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah. So there you go. But yeah, Mrs. Baylock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Baylock. Baylock.
Yeah.
Hey, I see Urko 2005. Is that you, Matt? Thanks for joining us on YouTube. We appreciate it. Christian is commenting, Ross talking Nick Roeg. I saw Bad Timing 1980 last week starring Art Garfunkel, Teresa Russell, Harvey Keitel, Denhelm Elliott, and Daniel Massey. I read about that film that it influenced the last Kubrick Eyes Wide Shut. I have doubts about that, though.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. Yeah. But 667 times for me.
Oh, Sherry's commenting. Hi, guys. On the road and listening to you in the car. This movie scared the heck out of me when I was young. Believe I saw this at the State Theater in Easton, PA. Thanks for tuning in, hon. And Sherry is actually on her way back because her aunt passed away, which I want to say thank you to everybody that reached out via Facebook for your thoughts and your concerns and your prayers. So thank you for that. It's much appreciated. Yeah, there were a lot of movies that were shown at the State Theater.
Yep. I remember being creeped out just by trailers for The Shining and for Dawn of the Dead at the State Theater. Yeah, you had the old screen there. I mean, that was a real theater.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't not a multiplex. It was an old, movie palace. Great place to see movies.
Hey, Dan Rodriguez is joining us. Dan, welcome. And Dan, hope you're doing better. Dan is just recovering from COVID, so hope you're okay, Dan. And thanks for being out there. Matt saying, oddly enough, I saw Peck receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom in front of the Academy of Music in Philadelphia. That must have been pretty cool.
Yeah. I remember when that happened. Yeah.
And let me see.
During our Philly years, which Matt continues to live. Yeah.
Christian is also commenting. Interesting time for Billie Whitelaw Frenzy, Space 1999 and The Omen. Interesting enough, Christian, The Omen actually wrapped production. It was filmed between October of 1975 and January 9th of 1976. And it was probably the next month later that she actually filmed the episode of Space 1999, which everybody out there knows that I love, One Moment of Humanity. So just putting that out there. Also, yes, Facebook user Randy Lee's commenting, Roy Schneider, Dick Van Dyke, and Charles Bronson were considered for the role of Robert Thorne. Interesting, too. Dick Van Dyke said that that was a huge regret of his, turning this film
Oh
down.
yeah, did he? Yeah, because everybody turned it down at first. They asked William Holden. He didn't want to do it because it was about the devil. Didn't stop him from coming back to do the sequel, though.
He played his brother.
He said, "Ooh, ooh, paycheck. This is a big hit." Charlton Heston was offered the role, but he was afraid it wouldn't be handled sensitively. That was going to be exploitative. This is the man who gave us Omega Man and Soylent Green. He was afraid that they were going to be exploitative in the Omen.
They offered that role to him. I think I remember the date. It was the day before my birthday, July 19th. They offered it to him of 1975, and he turned it down on July 27th. It was like 8 days later. He didn't.
There you go.
Wanted no part of it.
And I just imagine Sherry now saying, "Well, is there a shower scene?"
It's coming.
But then Charlton Heston went on to make the Awakening, which was based on a Bram Stoker story,
right.
Jewel of the Seven Stars, which was about somebody being possessed by, an ancient Egyptian. So, but it totally tanked at the box office. But he thought that might have been his Omen.
He was a couple movies too late.
Yeah, and Dick Van Dyke just dismissed it. He just said, "Oh, this is stupid." and then later on, he goes, "Oh well, I guess it wasn't that dumb." Yeah.
Oh boy.
My big regret. Dick Van Dyke. I'm sure it was a lot scarier working on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Dick Van Dyke, though, to be honest, though, I mean, not that he would have been a heavy in this. I mean, he did some drama.
They were thinking about the Columbo episode where he shoots himself in the leg.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna mention, and he did that with the actress, the woman that he played, that he was playing against with that was the woman. She was in Star Trek. She was in Cat's Paw. Antoinette Bauer. She was playing his wife, and then he shoots her, and then they get him because the picture is reversed. But anyway, I do want to.
Yeah.
What's up?
One more thing. Yeah.
Just one more thing. So.
Just one more thing. Yeah, you did it better.
Don't say it, Vince. I know it's coming. I know exactly what I was going to say. Roy Belquist, master impressionist. So, yeah, there is the poster for the movie, but also
pretty wordy poster. Yeah.
All roads lead to Star Trek with David Warner. Star Trek 5, Star Trek 6, and then of course Star Trek: The Next Generation, in which that episode is referenced to being the Four Lights episode, and that was Patrick Stewart probably should have won an Emmy for that, his performance in that. I mean, the interrogation scene in that episode, I mean, it was just grueling, and just the production values of that. But it takes us back to that.
David, you were going to say?
No, go ahead.
No, David. We all know David Warner. I mean, he was like the face of evil throughout the late '70s and throughout his whole career. I mean, they just played on that. Yeah, Jack the Ripper and Time After Time. He was in Tron. He was he played the personification of evil in Time Bandits. He was the Billy Zane's henchman in Titanic.
I never saw it. Did you say Titanic, Ross? I never saw that movie.
Yeah, well, you're not missing anything. His part's not big enough to make it worthwhile.
Don't tell Gwen that, because she's still out there. She's still there watching. Her and Allie at work are trying to get me to watch Titanic. And
watch the last 90 minutes. You can see the ship sink. But if you start at the very beginning, then you see the whole movie sink.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But he also they played on that a little bit with The Man with Two Brains, the Steve Martin comedy. He was the mad scientist in that movie.
So really, in this movie, he actually has the opportunity to be one of the good guys.
Yeah, but he plays it sinisterly. You think there's going to be some kind of blackmail thing or something, since he's always photographing everything. And although everybody's seen this movie, right? Am I spoiling the movie?
No, you're not. Oh, wait a minute. Before you jump into that, Linda, have a good night. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Have a nice time with your brother and Bill. We'll see you. Okay, go ahead, Ross.
She didn't want it spoiled. Everybody knows about the David Warner death scene, which is the single most memorable scene in the movie, I think. But apparently, he held on to that head, and until his ex he got divorced and his wife took the head.
I read that. I was dying.
How can I hurt David Warner the most?
I'll take his
I'm taking
decapitated head from a movie.
because he got up every day and paid homage to the head.
Maybe I talk back to him.
Exactly.
I read that, Ross, and I was like, "What?" Like, did I read that right?
Divorces get bitter, Roy. Not the severed head.
God rest his soul. David Warner just passed this year too. So many talents. Oh goodness! But
I always loved watching him, even though he always played a villain.
No, like I said, he was great in Star Trek. And ironically enough, in the Star Trek movies, he was the good guy. But when he played the Cardassian Next Generation, I mean, he was brutal. I saw Sue was commenting, and she's throwing a few factoids out there. She's saying, "Did folks hear that Robbie Coltrane passed away?" Yes, very, very tragic, Sue. Thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, I heard that this was announced earlier today. He was Hagrid in all the Harry Potter movies. Coltrane was also in the 80s Flash Gordon as the man at Airfield and performed on the soundtrack of the song Odo the Hero for Harry Potter and Half-Blood Prince, uncredited. Coltrane was also in 2 James Bond films, GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough. Yes, I remember seeing that, and as well as Ocean's 11. So yeah, may he rest in peace. It's again, so many people.
He was 72, and on the one hand, it's like, wow, he's only 72. And on the other hand, it's like, wow, he's 72 already? It's like, how fast is time passing? Hagrid was 72.
That's crazy.
Yeah. A shock.
Yeah. Brennan brought up a point that there was a similar interrogation episode in Babylon 5, in which we were talking about David Warner and Sark and Tron. Yep, we were talking about that as well. Hang on one second. Wanted to share another thing. So yeah, just to give you a closer look at Billie Whitelaw. I mean, how sinister, how creepy. I mean, she tries to come off a little bit very subtle. Like she at one point is suggesting, well, we'll get to the plot. This is a movie we got to talk about. We'll make it quick, but we'll
660 minutes, 666 minutes of plot.
Another this movie was loaded with actors from Space 1999, so it's more like All Roads Lead to 1999 than it does with Star Trek, because this film was shot in the UK. You had Patrick Troughton, who was, of course, Doctor Who. He's playing the maniacal Irish priest, as Ross was saying earlier.
Yeah. He was also Phineas in Jason and the Argonauts.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I forgot about that, because we were talking about that.
Yeah, right.
So, and Anthony Nichols had a role in this. He was also in 1999. He was in the episode of The Troubled Spirit. Leo McKern, Australian actor. He's playing what was the guy's name again? I forgot.
He's playing Father Marin.
No, that was not him. He was playing Bugahagen. He's the expert on the Antichrist.
So. Yeah, they keep talking about Brugenhagen and Megiddo. What? And of course, Gregory Peck manages to remember it.
Yes.
But yeah, he's kind of the Von Helsing, even though he has one scene. Yeah.
Also, Colin's commenting, Leo McKern from The Prisoner, of course, as well as number two. Yep, and he was in
the Bailey. Yeah.
Roy Boyd, who was in Space 99 episode The Immunity Syndrome, he plays a photographer in this movie. And then also Don Bellows, who I didn't even realize was in this film. He was actually in the episode of Breakaway. He's essentially playing the newscaster they pick up the televised broadcast that the moon has been blown out of the Earth's orbit. He's in this film. And
which part did he play in the movie? Do you remember?
He played one of his aides. He was one of Thorne's aides.
Oh, okay. I missed it.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. But he was also, for Raiders of the Lost Ark fans, at the beginning of the movie, he comes to see, and actually at the end too, him and then the actor that plays Porkins in Star Wars, they both come to him to try to find out about the Lost Covenant of the Ark. And I didn't even realize that was
Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, William Hootkins is the other guy, who's a Princeton graduate, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was an Oriental Studies major here at Princeton.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so both of them. And then also at the very end, I saw, which we'll get to, in the the final scene at the graveyard scene at the funeral, I saw Quentin Pierre. He's there, and he was a security guard throughout the 2 seasons of 1999, from the very first episode to the last episode. And actually now he is the whatchamacallit, the PA, not the PA, the what was I saying? He's the for Morgan Freeman.
Oh, you did tell
Personal
me.
assistant. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman's personal assistant. So pretty cool. And he's been doing that for like over 30 years. But again, there's the 1999 tie-ins.
Good eye. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Now, we're talking about all these people that were up for the part that Peck eventually played, but the first guy that they wanted was Oliver Reed.
yes.
Okay. Well, we'll start again. That was just the dress rehearsal.
666 seconds ago.
See, the Omen is scary. But I think Oliver Reed would have been terrific in the part.
I agree.
Yeah.
But he didn't want it though.
Yeah.
And there was another actor too besides Oliver Reed.
He wanted burn offerings.
Yeah, and they were essentially shot around the same time too.
Yeah. I'm working with Dan Curtis.
Let me see here. Dennis is saying I'm a huge fan of Tron.
I have to go back and watch Tron. I was a little disappointed in that one, but I only ever saw it once.
Yeah, I only saw that movie once too. And that came out, that actually, Tron just celebrated its 40th anniversary. That came out in 1982, the summer of 82, if I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had high hopes for that one.
Yeah, Bruce.
It was a great time for movies, though. You know, even the movies that were kind of middling were much better than what's coming out now. For me, much more entertaining and absorbing. Yeah. You know, beer for Oliver and harder substances. Yeah.
I think about that episode that you sent me of him on David Letterman, and he takes off his glasses, and then Dave's like, "Whoa."
Yeah, you have to Google. You have to read about his great how he goes out in a blaze of glory during Gladiator. How he challenges a couple of servicemen to a drinking contest, an arm wrestling contest. And he racks up, I'm not exaggerating, the bar bill was something like $600. It was lunch. And he just basically, drank himself to death and arm wrestled himself to death. He had a fatal heart attack, but yeah. But I like to think he still won. I think he was still winning the arm wrestling.
How much was that bar bill? $666?
Yeah, I think it was $666 is what it was. Oh, wait a minute.
I just got that.
You must be, what's his name? Babadook. What's his Brugenhagen.
Brugenhagen. Colin is saying amazing that sort of graphics back in the early 80s for the likes of Tron you could do on your PC. No, that's true.
Cutting edge then, but
yeah. Sue's commenting, Dennis, have you seen the TV series Tron Uprising? We watched it about a year ago on Disney Plus and absolutely loved it. There's also a Tron graphic novel out there that's very good. Thanks for sharing.
So when was the Tron sequel out? Was that before the series or after the series? They did a Tron 2 at some point.
I think it was after. I think. Thanks for posting the link, Sue. And
was Bridges in the series?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. But Father Brennan did have a tattoo, 666 tattoo in the film. So he had some stuff to kind of repent for, because he too was touched by evil.
Well, now here's a question, and then we'll get into the crux of this. Father Brennan, who was Patrick Troughton, I was getting the impression that he was bad, and then what happened was he decided to turn good, and that's how he knew about everything that took place. Was that your takeaway?
Yeah, who knows? It could be, but he had the tattoo, and that was not the tattoo, the birthmark. The birthmark is what it was, because one of the working titles for the film was The Birthmark,
right? Which
is a kind of a ridiculous name. I mean, Nathaniel Hawthorne had the story The Birthmark. It wasn't about Satan, but I think the first title they wanted to use was The Antichrist, but they wanted to dial it down a little bit.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't have gone over so well as far as
It's coming to a theater near you, The Antichrist in 1976.
Yeah, that wouldn't have gone over
People
well.
still reeling from The Exorcist. Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So he had the
conceivable that
birthmark.
he was almost like the failed attempt, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to repent, and that's how he knew everything. But
Yeah.
it's not very clear, though.
No,
It's
it's not clear. There's a lot that's murky about the movie. The whole thing with the presaging, the portents about people's deaths that David Warner would develop. And how about going back to an era when you had to develop your photographs like that?
right.
And always smoking a cigarette over the highly flammable chemicals. But anyway, yeah, every time he would develop the film, he would see, kind of a presentiment of the person's death. There'd be like a line, that would indicate how they were going to die horribly. But that made no sense. It's like, why? Why would David Warner see this? What does that have to do with the rest of the movie? It's just like cool. You know what I mean?
Well, I think part of it is it's just saying that these people are cursed; they're going to die. It's almost like a
But why would
foreshadow.
it show up on a piece of film that
Why
David
not?
Warner was taking? This has nothing to do with the rest of the trajectory of the movie. But we remember it, so why not? Yeah.
Right.
But what's Satan doing messing around with your film? He would Satan care? unless he
Well,
knew unless he knew he was going to get David Warner later, and he was going to like psych him out by doing this with the other people first.
or anybody that would develop would have encountered the same thing. Anybody that would have taken a picture would have seen the same thing. I don't think it was just limited to David Warner. It's just that I think
But why would that be?
it's the supernatural. It's the occult. There's no explanation.
Yeah, but it's supposed. But when something's a cult, it's supposed to be kind of scary, not just stupid. That's the part Dick Van Dyke probably saw in the script and just said, "I'm not doing this." It's dumb.
I got a bad feeling about this.
But but all the killings, all the supernatural murders, are the things that stick with us and the things that we remember from the movie, and the chanting Jerry Goldsmith score. Yeah.
Now Dan's bringing up a good point. He's saying kind of along the lines of Vader turning good at the end of Jedi. So
there you go.
Right,
redemption. He's seeking redemption. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he dies, but at least he dies, and he's pretty much repented, so to speak.
Yeah. After blowing up Alderaan, and I guess Tarkin does that, but
Martin is saying, lucky he didn't send his films off to Boots. He would be getting them back by now. Oh boy. Yeah. Anyway, so let's take a look at some of the film memories from this film. Let's go explore that.
All right.
So, I mean, it's a happy moment. Now, we should point out that Robert Thorne is a diplomat, and at this point, he's in Italy. The date comes up, and the date is the 6th of June, and
the 6th month.
Yeah, right, and it's exactly,
yeah.
And it's
at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah,
6 o'clock in the morning. And incidentally, this movie was actually not filmed. It was opened. They did a preview of this movie in London or in England, in the UK, and they did it on the 6th of June. And do you want to hear an interesting tidbit too, Ross? Just I was going through the birth dates and everything. Billie Whitelaw's birthday was June 6th, incidentally,
well,
in real life.
I wonder if she was born at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know.
But she was. Yeah. That's why Beckett liked her.
But anyway, we were in Italy. We're at the hospital, and it's actually a special hospital where she's at.
You're sneaking into the plot, aren't you? Go ahead.
But no, I'm not going to go through everything. But the whole premise is that she's going to be giving birth, and what happens is Gregory Peck finds out that essentially that their baby has died, and he doesn't want to tell her because she's going to be devastated, because he brings out that she's had a couple of miscarriages before this. It comes up about potentially doing adoption, and then he's like, she wanted to have her own. And this is when the priest that's on site says to him that another person was giving, or another individual was giving birth. And what happened was that individual died at the time that his baby had died, and nobody would know. Basically, the switcheroo, and he decides to go along with it, and he brings the baby to her, and everything seems wonderful, and it's kind of, like a family moment. But then they fast forward 5 years later, and different things start to happen.
Yeah. The funny thing though is the kid's fine through the whole movie. This is just like one scene. Like he throws a fit when they're going to take him to church. But the kid's a delightful kid. He doesn't do anything.
No,
he doesn't even look creepy. And believe me, I think a lot of kids look creepy. But well, here he's creepy among the crosses, but that's a publicity shot.
It is. It's not taken from the movie.
But he's always smiling and just a normal kid. It's the nanny that's creepy.
Well, and the one thing too, the reason why he actually was cast for the movie, and this was Harvey Stephens as Damien Thorne.
Yeah,
it was because of his audition, and what happened was he was engaging the director. Mm-hmm. He pretty much was attacking him and carrying on, and really just being very physical with him.
Yeah.
So Donner decided to go with him with that, but he tried to make him look a little bit creepier because he had blonde hair, so they dyed it dark, and then he also was given contact lenses to kind of make them a little bit more sinister looking.
But they didn't look like a snake's eyes.
No, they didn't look like snake eyes.
But yeah, he did egg him on though to attack him and everything. This was his only major role, was as Damien here. I looked him up to see what else he had done, and all I could get was a road rage incident from a few years ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
We won't go too much into that,
but life imitating art. Hey, Ross.
I know. Yeah. But
hey, I want to welcome Allie. Allie's there. Hey, Allie, thanks for joining us. She's saying I'm late, but I'm here. And then she said kids are creepy. Thanks for joining us, Allie. Good to see you out there. Yep. Dennis is saying the Poseidon Adventure. And then Matt's asking, is there a plot?
Is this the plot? Yeah. It's the plot. Yeah. So are you continuing with the plot, or there we go.
Wow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and just show some of the pictures of
sure.
the people. So you have Gregory Peck is Robert Thorne, Lee Remick, who was also a very well-known actress back in the day. Mm-hmm. She was playing his wife, Kathy. And then, of course, you have Damien, and then also David Warner.
Mm-hmm. And Lee Remick and Gregory Peck were both big actors at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And Gregory Peck for decades, and Lee Remick since at least the 60s. She was nominated for an Oscar. Days of Wine and Roses. She was nominated for a Tony for playing Wait Until Dark, which they made into the movie with Audrey Hepburn. Mm. But, she was in a lot of movies before this.
She passed very young, too.
She did. She was only 55. That's
young.
Terrifying, yeah. But, it was kind of like the way they used her in this movie, even though it was quite different. Again, the Hitchcock comparison, Janet Leigh in Psycho. Mm. You have an actress here who's a big name, and, well, you kind of know she's going to get it at some point, but it's kind of, you don't do that stuff to Lee Remick.
Right.
They did in this movie. That was a very Hitchcockian scene, by the way, where she falls off the balcony. Most of the movie I don't find disturbing, oddly enough, but that was one scene that was, because it was uncanny, because you're trying to get your bearings, because when she falls, it's not quite right. And it's because she didn't want to risk injuring herself. So they put her on did you read this? They dollied, they actually built the floor so it was a vertical.
Right.
They dollied her toward the wall, and the way it was shot was uncanny. It was a very Brian De Palma kind of, or a Hitchcock kind of moment, the way it was filmed.
That reminded me of? It reminded me of when you watch the Batman TV series from the 60s, and they're climbing up the wall.
Yeah, just like that, Roy. Hey, Batman and Robin. Hey, it's Sammy Davis Jr.
Or Lurch.
It's Lurch.
You know what I'm talking about, Ross.
I definitely do.
You did a mean Ross. I mean, you did a mean Lurch, Ross.
No, thank you. Thank you.
But no, exactly. It was trick photography the way they did it. And going back, she was afraid of getting hurt because I think, what was it, Ellen Burstyn, I think it was?
Yeah, and The Exorcist.
The Exorcist. I mean, there's the tie into The Exorcist right there.
Yeah.
When she fell, she messed up her back for almost like life.
Right. Well, William Friedkin was a little rough. The director of The Exorcist, he would do all kinds of stuff to them on purpose. And yeah, she did it. They yanked her with a rope and really hurt her spine. Yeah. Unexpectedly. She wasn't ready for it. He just had it done, knowing it would knock her off balance. Yeah, he did all kinds of stuff like slap people right before shots or fire guns on the set. Yeah. Old school, Roy.
He was, old school. Yeah, there you go.
He was bringing it old school.
The method. Yeah, there you go.
Richard Donner was a little kinder than that.
Yeah. Liz is commenting, one scary thing in this film was the Paternoster open lift that was the Italian hospital at the beginning. There was one in the bank where I worked, and I hated using it. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. The scariest part of the movie.
Roy, Ross is busting on you. He's busting in you. Oh, my goodness. But yeah, in regards to that. Oh, I want to come back to, before we go on, Christian is commenting, okay, Roy, here's my Omen story. In 1978, at my first high school, we had two shifts on, let's see, I'm on daytime. Most of my friends the nighttime. At home and reading the Omen novel. About 9 p.m., my phone rang. A friend told me some girl just hanged herself at our school. She did it in the ladies' room. The morning after, I arrived at the school and found out the ladies' room is sealed and it's only a few feet from my locker. I didn't know her, but we made eye contact. Oh, God, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we made him share that story.
Oh,
wow.
Sorry, Christian. Wow, that is
real life Omen. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that is. Matt is asking Ross, who was Beckett's muse again? Yeah, and that was
Billie Whitelaw. Whitelaw. What did I say? Whitelaw.
There she is.
She is on the left.
Yeah, that's her.
Can't you tell? Yeah.
Now, in regards to the movie, in regards to the different things that happen. So, getting back to the plot, I'm going to kind of steer back in. But
the first image there is another thing that was freaky. I concede that was another kind of uncanny moment. Well, that and the fact that they had that clown for they're playing with the clown. Did you see that clown? The clown was scary.
Clown was scary.
Look ahead.
Clown's scary a lot of people, actually.
I know, but this clown was scary because they didn't try to make him scary.
No. But anyway, that's really scary, Ross. No, in all seriousness, though, what's happened is their family is being targeted because he gets a promotion where he is going to be the Prime Minister for the UK, I believe.
The ambassador
for the UK.
Yeah, to the UK. Yeah.
So that's when things start to unravel. So first they have a nanny who essentially is very close to Damien, and there's a Rottweiler or a Doberman.
It's a Rottweiler.
It was a Rottweiler.
Can you think of a more ferocious beast?
It just shows up.
It had to be that the producer had to be friends with somebody who breeds Rottweilers. So I'm thinking, what the hell is this? So menacing. Ooh, Rottweilers. I mean, granted, you don't want to be attacked by Rottweilers, but they're more menacing dogs than that.
Like Dobermans.
Yeah. But I guess they were all busy making Doberman Gang. All the Dobermans in Hollywood were making the Doberman movies. But but then again, in Faust, the first time that Faust sees Mephistopheles, he appears in the guise of a giant black poodle.
Oh, there you go.
Is there anything more terrifying than a giant black poodle?
Yeah, a Rottweiler. A Rottweiler that hypnotizes the nanny, and then she just goes off. And then the next thing you know, she says, is everybody's commenting out there, Damien, this is for you. And then what happens is she proceeds to hang herself, and everybody's like scarred and can't figure out why this has happened.
Yeah,
So
that was a good
back at the
scene.
house.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. And then back at the house, what's happening is they're all recouping, and out of nowhere, this is when Mrs. Baylock shows up, and she's the nanny that is going to be taking their old nanny's place. And then the Thorns are kind of like, well, where did she come from? Did you call the agency? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
And they're both questioning it. Meanwhile, they've escorted her up to meet with Damien. She's insisting that she meets them alone, has nothing, is able to, will be able to bond and have the
Right.
conversation, and is insistent on it. And they let her do it.
I know, it's so frustrating because at every step, you want to smack her or stop her, but they're just so nice.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
would have thrown her right the hell out. Satan would have had to try something else.
But she makes her way, and that's the beginning. And then they question as far as, how did she know? And they say, well, the agency read about what had happened with the hanging, and that they immediately sent somebody. It's like, okay, they read it in the newspaper, but they didn't even call and didn't even like say, what happened. They didn't question any of this, and they just sent her as a replacement, and they go with it. So that is very unnerving. And then the other thing that happens is Mrs. Thorne, Lee Remick, wants her to get the nanny to get Damien ready for church. And she's like, well, no. He shouldn't be going to church. And then she's like, I want him ready. And she's like, no. He's 5 years old. He's not going to want to go to church. And it's like, oh my God, no pun intended. And she finally puts her foot down and says, have him ready. And then she goes back upstairs to get Damien. And then that's when they're taking him to church. And as she's holding him and they're getting closer and closer, you have that score that's going on in the background. And then they're photographing the church as they're getting closer. And then Damien just abruptly freaks out when they get very close to hollow ground, and then starts scratching at Lee Remick and clawing her. And then essentially they leave there, and he doesn't make it to church. So it's all these little subtle things that are happening. And
I guess they never had him baptized.
Yeah, exactly. That you would have thought that would have been something, and that's also a good point,
especially in Italy.
Yeah, right. Now David Warner winds up taking a picture of the father, Patrick Troughton, who tries to talk to Robert Thorne and warn him and tell him that essentially he's in grave danger, his family's in danger, and Thorne pretty much dismisses him and thinks he's a kook, has him escorted out with security. And then when he's being brought out, that's when Warner takes his picture, and then he sees that there's a line that's starting to kind of go through him or near him, but it's not totally defined until later on when he actually sees him again and takes another picture. And then you can see that it's actually like a spear that's going through him. So all these things are starting to unravel.
Yeah.
And
there's always the ineffectual priest who gets killed in these things. Even I was going to say going back to The Exorcist, but even before that, you remember War of the Worlds, the George Powell movie. There's always somebody who tries to make friends, with the menace. It's like, oh yes, we're here in peace, and then they get the heat ray,
Right.
But yeah, I mean this is the thing though. I mean, this is another very memorable death scene. It's one of the things I always remember about the Omen, but it's almost camp. You know what I mean? For me, I don't want to laugh, but because it's not funny. But when the wind machines start kicking up, and you see it's actually kind of a nice day. It's almost like how they do day for night in some foreign films and things in old movies. It was kind of like that. It's a nice sunny day, and you can see the clouds, but the wind machines kick on, and you can kind of see the nuts and bolts of how they're shooting the scene. And what's going to happen when they show that thing up on top of the church. That's coming down. So I don't know. It's just me. Sorry.
Now,
sorry if you found it scary.
Well, I thought it was suspenseful. I mean, you do know what's going to happen, and you're almost hoping that. I mean,
well, that is suspense.
Going to.
Yeah. You're hoping against hope it's not going to happen. That is suspense. Right. But I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. I mean,
And I wasn't hoping it wasn't going to happen.
But what's kind of terrifying though is he gives him the warning. He pretty much pleads with him to meet him at a park. So the priest, Father Brennan, meets Thorne and Gregory Peck, and he asks for what? I think 5 minutes. He says, "Just give me 5 minutes of your time." And he's warning him about the Antichrist. He's warning him that he has to repent and essentially, you know, accept Christ. That's why he was trying to get him to, go to confession. He was trying to, get him to go to communion. And he's telling him that essentially what's going to happen is he even tells him, he says, your wife is pregnant. He knows about the wife. He says, Damien will never allow that baby to be born. What's going to happen is the baby will be killed, and then it'll eventually go for your wife and then everything around you. And then, then your own life is going to be pretty much in danger. It's like everything that you love is going to be taken away. And Thorne is really trying not to accept this. And as things begin to progress through the movie, at every turn, everything that Father Brennan has laid out for him, almost like in a crazy type of manner, going with the initial meeting, starts to come true. And that's where I think it really starts to get freaky. Now, originally, like you were saying, when Donner was filming this, he really wanted it to be almost like you don't know for sure.
Right.
And it would have been interesting too if they kept going in that direction, because you really would wonder, it's like, is it just like coincidence, or is it really something that's behind all this? Is it supernatural? Because really, I mean, with the exception of up until the point where Father Brennan gets killed, I mean, there really is no indication that this is kind of a supernatural effect going on. But when we see what happens with him, and he starts to walk away, and I'm with you too, Ross, because he's not even that far away from Thorne when the wind starts to gust up, and you're wondering, why doesn't he run in the other direction? He's running in the direction that is away from everybody. Now, granted, he sees a church, and you're thinking, you know what, he's going to be safe getting to the church, but you would think he would head in the other direction where there's people, and it all starts the moment he gets up to walk away from him.
It's just kind of, it's almost like a parody to me. Like if it had been instead of Richard Donner, if Richard Lester had stepped in and filmed it, if they had fired Donner and gotten Richard Lester to film this scene, that's what it was like for me. So, sorry, Richard Donner.
But anyway, so
yeah,
it gets progressively worse and worse, and what happens is his idealism, he changes. He starts to suspect that what Father Brennan was talking about is true, because he finds out that he was killed, and Warner brings him the I think it was the paper showing him that. And then what happens is Warner brings him to his photo lab, and he's showing him where he's seeing that, with his nanny that was killed, she's got the noose around her neck. With Father Brennan, he's got the it looks like he's being impaled. And then what happens is he also shows a photo of himself that he took, and then he also has something that's going on around by his neck, and that's why he's compelled to help him, because he's trying to prevent from whatever is happening to happen, so maybe he can save himself.
Right. He caught himself in the mirror with the shot.
Yes, it was the mirror. Yeah,
that's how that happened. Right.
You brought up about the Lee Remick, Kathy, when she falls, she's working on a light, and she's trying to adjust it, and she gets up on this like stand, and then what happens is the nanny opens the door, so Damien, that he's doing like it was like a big wheel almost, and he's driving around the house, and
like The Shining. Yeah.
Like The Shining, yeah, and he crashes right into her, and she goes over the banister, so you think, trick photography. Yeah, and of course she lands right on her stomach, and she's pregnant. And what happens is, as a result of that, she loses the baby.
Yeah, and she's in like a semi-body cast after that for a little bit. Yeah.
So it's just one thing after the other. So with that, they get to he's going to go off with David Warner to try to investigate what exactly happened in Italy, when she was supposedly when she was pregnant and gave birth, and then where this other baby came from. They're trying to find out all the missing pieces, and he leaves her in the hospital and thinks that she's going to be under care and everything. And he heads back to Italy, and it's there that he discovers that that the baby Damien was born from a jackal.
Yeah, he's the son of a jackal.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Then the second thing that he finds out is that their baby, was actually murdered because the skull is cracked. So that was the other thing. And what they did was essentially they wanted to replace Damien with his unborn baby, so that Damien could infiltrate and take the place, and then essentially try to rise through the ranks because of his political power.
Exactly. Now, why do you think they buried the jackal in the graveyard? I got a great idea. Okay, so he's born from a jackal. Let's cover our tracks by burying the jackal in the mother's crypt. Nobody will ever figure it out.
Well, one thing we're not pointing out, though, is the birth records were burned. There was a fire at the hospital.
Right.
It was right after that. So everything was lost. And it's only because he was able to track down the priest that he spoke with at that time, who is now a deaf mute, and also is actually he's not deaf. He's a blonde. He's half blind.
Yeah, blind in one eye, disfigured, and from the fire. And and he can't communicate. Yeah,
and he can't communicate. Yeah,
except shakily with a piece of charcoal.
And that's how they were able to go to the cemetery and track that down. And when they go to the cemetery, they're also attacked by Rottweilers again.
Terrifying Rottweilers.
Yeah.
All very clean Rottweilers, by the way, and well groomed.
So while all of this is going on, they narrowly escape. They get back to the hotel that they're staying at, and what he does is he calls his wife and he tells her, he says, "You got to get out of there." He goes, "I want you to leave London and get out of there." And she's like, essentially half of her is like in this like you were saying, this body cast. So she doesn't understand. She thinks that she's safe at the hospital, and what she does is she agrees to do it. And as she gets off the phone with him and is attempting to get ready to leave and to go, she turns. Well, she's actually, I think she's changing. And then when she goes to change, she and I lost it. I was trying to do this quickly. And while this is all happening, she turns and then she sees Mrs. Baylock right there, right beside her. And then what happens is she's terrified and she's like not moving. And then the next thing you know, she's going right through the window. And
and that was skillfully done, because when she's pulling, you know how that is. I mean, she can't get around. She's pulling the whatever she has over her head, and she views her through whatever fabric that is.
Right.
This blinding her, and that's kind of a nightmarish thing. I mean,
she was trapped.
Yeah, and you can't quite make out. She can't quite make out what's going on, but she can see. It's just a kind of a nightmarish scenario. Yeah.
No, it was kind of disturbing, actually.
I guess she's the most the most terrifying nanny or personal assistant or whatever she since Judith Anderson in Rebecca, where she plays Mrs. Danvers. I didn't draw the connection until now, but yeah, she's like they're Mrs. Danvers.
Brendan saying, I view the Omen film like Friday the 13th. I think most of us wanted it to happen. Dan is saying, I thought those old school effects were kind of creepy because it was more real to me. And Dan Worth's out there. Hey, Dan, thanks for joining. He's saying that would have made it even more creepier. And Matt's saying, in anticipation of tomorrow's party, I'm cutting the cheese. Matt. And he's giving his address out.
Nice. Great. Everybody's invited. There you go.
Party at Matt's brother's house. There you go.
Wow.
Matt just gave out the keys to the Batcave.
The Changeling with George C. Scott. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now there's a thought as an Omen on a Carry On film.
Yeah.
Oh boy, the Rottweilers and Dobermans were the terror dogs of the 70s.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Do you
Dan,
remember all the
exactly.
Doberman films they were making though, like the Doberman Gang and those amazing Dobermans? You know, do you remember that when they were the bank robbers? They robbed the bank using the Dobermans, and the later one it was more. They had Fred Astaire was with the Dobermans. You don't remember these films? They made like
Oh,
4 or 5 of them in the 70s.
the Hages guy. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
saying
the
the
Doberman
Doberman
Gang.
Gang. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Colin's saying great film, and Dan is saying yes. So yeah,
Well, some people remember. Yeah.
Daniel.
They're like big dogs.
Oh, what was that other movie with Gregory Peck? Wasn't it The Boys from Brazil?
Oh, Boys from Brazil, right?
Wasn't I think there were killer Dobermans in that movie, weren't there?
Um, possibly. That's where he's the Nazi, and
Yeah.
they're in South America looking for the again the spawn of Hitler or whatever they are.
No, that's what it was, and they were
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie since the 70s or whatever. I think they made that right after this, actually, not too long after.
Yeah, I think that was 78 if I remember
Robbing
correctly.
Dobermans. Yeah.
Yeah. Dan, that's what I said. Nope, Fred Astaire, Starbucks dad, and also trained over.
There you go.
What's his name? Chameleon? Yeah, Chameleon. I forget. Brendan saying, my brother and I saw the Doberman Gang in the theater. I was too young to remember it though. Wow, I didn't see that. It sounds familiar, but I'm forgetting.
I think I saw it at the State Theater.
Yeah.
Or one of them. I don't know. I don't remember which one. You know, if it was the Doberman Gang or those the amazing Dobermans or what it was, whatever it was. Like I said, there were a number of them that they made with these amazing Dobermans.
Christian said, yeah, 1978. I thought that was it.
Isn't it funny how back in the day, 2 dogs, it would be enough to have a trained animal to have a franchise, like the Benji films, you know,
Right.
or Grizzly Adams, you know. There were simpler times, folks. It's like we have a cute dog that's trained. Let's make 5 movies about it. I guess it goes back to Lassie and Rin Tin Tin.
Rin Tin Tin. Oh my goodness. Old Yeller.
Peck was in oh no, he's a yearling. He was in the yearling, not Old Yeller. Sorry. Same movie to me. To the Doberman. We should make that our Halloween episode.
Oh no.
That'll be our crossover episode. You got to contact Mike and Mary Beth and tell them there's a schedule change that we're doing the Doberman Gang for Halloween. See Mike.
Brendan, if the film was made in the 90s, it would have been Pit Bulls.
Yeah.
The Mountain Family. Oh my goodness. All right, we're out of control here. So anyway, what happens is after Kathy dies, he gets the phone call in Italy because he was going to have a friend pick her up at the embassy, bring her to the embassy, and he finds out that she's dead. And with all of this, you know, he plays it. They played the scene a certain way where he's not like overreacting to it, and I guess that was Donner's direction. And I guess they had a disagreement about how they were going to handle that. And then what happened was Peck went with what Donner wanted, and he said in the end, the way he delivered that, he felt that Donner was correct. So he decides that he is going to seek out Bugenhagen, and he's the expert on the Antichrist, and him and Warner set out together to find him. And when they do, Bugenhagen basically tells him, he says to David Warner, he says, you know what, this is like not for your eyes and your ears, you know, you need to like go away, and this is only for, you know, Mr. Peck, Mr. Peck, for Robert Thorne. And it's interesting too, because when Warner's character is leaving, and I keep calling him David Warner, Keith Jennings is his character's name, the photographer. When he walks out, he's going like through the cave, it starts to crumble down, and I'm waiting for something to happen where he's gonna like die right there. I mean,
Right.
were you anticipating something like that, or
No, because I remember he got his head cut off.
oh, okay.
I
So
can't
much
remember what I was
Chekhov's
thinking the first
gun.
time I watched it. Yeah, I can't remember what I was thinking the first time I watched it. However, this time I was wondering if there was a possibility that Leo McKern and John Rhys Davies may have been separated at birth. Because I think at the very least they share voices. Has anybody
Yeah,
seen John Rhys Davies and Leo McKern in the same room ever?
no.
I'm sure, and Michael Gambon. You got to get them all together.
Well, they have very deep voices.
Yeah, I guess.
You know who else you need in there? Brian Blessed. That would complete
Well,
it.
Brian Blessed was the one I would always pair with John Rhys Davies. To me, I had a running joke that like when they couldn't afford John Rhys Davies, they got Brian Blessed to be in the movies. But last night was the first, or 2 nights ago when I was rewatched The Omen. That's the first time I thought that with Leo McKern. That wow, he really sounds like Rhys Davies here.
Yeah, no, very, very booming. Very. In fact, somebody posted on I think I'm not sure who did it on the Facebook page about Brian Blessed, because he's talking about obviously one of the movies that he did was Flash Gordon, and
Right.
thinks, Gordon's alive. But anyway, what was that?
Mike Hodges, who directed that, was offered this movie.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, he turned it down. Yeah, he either turned it down or got fired. I can't, but I think he turned it down.
He got fired again.
Yeah.
So, with all of this happening, Copenhagen essentially tells him, he says that he is the Antichrist based on everything he's told him, and Peck Thorne is not convinced, and then he says, "Is there proof?" And he says, "Oh yes." And then he tells him to look for the number, the 666. And then he tells him, he says, "You know what? I've bathed him. I've seen every inch of him." He said he doesn't have it, and then he suggests about it being under the scalp. And then he tells him, he says, "This is no child. This is not. You have to let go of what you're thinking in regards to family." He said he's going to destroy everything that you have, and at this point, even Peck even says that Damien must die. But then when he's leaving with David Warner and they're exiting, he's like, Warner's asking him, he said, "What did he say?" He goes, "I have a right to know." And then he's like, he wants me to kill this boy, and he takes the knives, all 7 of them, and he throws them, and he goes, "I won't do it." And then what happens is David Warner's like, "Well, if you won't, I will." And then he goes for the stuff, and then somebody's getting out of a tractor. And as they get out, they hit the brake off, and then it goes all the way off by itself. We don't know. And then what happens is it starts to roll, and he's picking up the knives. And just as he's doing so, and it's happening. Let me see here if I can do this.
Oh my God, there's not actually going to be a shot of this, is there? Talk about exploitation.
There you go. Well,
where is it? Oh, I see. It hasn't quite hit there. Yeah. I was going to say, you're going to get us an X rating, Roy.
No. That's and actually that's probably what wound up with David Warner's ex-wife.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so tame by today's standards, though. Isn't that funny how jaded we are? I am. Because I was a sensitive kid, and that would have really bothered me in '76. But now I watch it, and it's just like, it looks like my science project in 6th grade or whatever. Could really go over the plot again.
Yeah, Martin reminds me of Alpha Child from 1999. Yeah, exactly. It really does have similarities with that. I would agree, definitely. Jackie Crawford. So with that, we'll come back to that. Oh no, not again. There we go. I almost played it again. Oh man. So this is where I kind of you're talking about the direction of the film, Ross. So after all this has happened, and then the music's playing, Thorne is just like, because David Warner's head gets decapitated, and he's just looking like, oh my God, somebody else has died, and then and it's just getting more and more intense. So he grabs the knives, and what does he do? He heads back to his house, and of course, when he heads back to his house, It's late at night. It's in darkness. He's going to the going to go through the house. He's trying to check on Damien. Now, one thing we didn't mention is that there was a Rottweiler that Mrs. Baylock brought in, and they didn't want. And he essentially tells them that they don't want it, and she doesn't want to listen. And then she finally says that she tries to say that Damien is really taking a liking to it. So it's like anytime they say left, Mrs. Baylock is saying right or wrong, I should say.
Right.
And this is just another example. And he even confronts her before he leaves for the trip and says that he wants the dog gone. And she says that they've come for it. So when he gets to the house, he hears the dog. He knows the dog is still there, and he's able to trap it in I believe it was like in the basement. And then he goes upstairs. He checks and he sees that Mrs. Baylock is asleep. And then he goes to Damien and he starts cutting away at his hair. And then he's able to reveal that he can see the number of the 666. And just as he does that, what happens is Mrs. Baylock attacks him, and she's just like this raging lunatic. And Gubenhagen actually had warned him about her, saying that, she essentially will do anything to protect the child and will kill for the child. And it, is essentially that she's a servant of the devil. And he is able to overpower her, and then he finally stabs her and takes her down. Interesting enough, though, Colin had actually sent a clip, and it's deleted scenes. It's actually on the Blu-ray if you watch it. Donner is going through it, and he talks about it, that they had a lot of footage that they didn't go with. And when he takes Damien, because his plan is to take Damien to the church and has to kill him on hollow ground. And that's going to be the only way that's going to put an end to this. While all this is going on, the dog actually escapes and is attacking the car and actually breaks through the glass. And he actually kills the dog, which they decided not to go with that.
With a screwdriver.
With the screwdriver, yeah. I mean, you talk about, about the X rating and everything. And then the other thing is Mrs. Baylock is not killed, is not dead. And essentially what he winds up doing is he winds up running her over.
She attacks the car then, yeah.
She attacks the car,
now,
yeah.
I don't know if I could swallow Atticus Finch stabbing a Rottweiler with a screwdriver. I'm so glad that they cut that out of the movie. Yeah. Gregory Peck.
Yeah, that would not have been good.
He was involved with so many humanitarian issues, and he's such a forthright guy, and just to imagine him stabbing dogs with a screwdriver just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, especially with To Kill a Mockingbird, right?
Yeah, Atticus Finch is killing Rottweiler. Well, he does shoot a dog actually in To Kill a Mockingbird, but it's a mad dog. It has rabies. Yeah.
As opposed to a Rottweiler that's possessed by the evil devil.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You have to make some allotment.
Martin is asking, didn't Sam Neill reprise the part of Damien in a later film?
Yeah, before he was famous in the U.S. Yeah.
He was in Omen 3.
Right.
And Sue
in fact, that's the first thing I knew him from, is from the Omen 3.
Yeah, in fact, 1999 fans, because he was with Lisa Harrow. That was, I'm not sure if they were married or not, but they do have a son together. Yeah. After Ross being traumatized with Omega Man, nothing scares him anymore.
I was vaccinated.
So anyway, Thorne is able he gets Damien, and what he does is he brings him to the church. But on the way to the church, of course, he's speeding out of control. And then what happens is the police are after him, and they realize who he is, because his car is a diplomatic car, and they're trailing him. And he brings Damien to the church, and Damien's trying to escape, and he's screaming. And I guess from a lot of the footage that was cut, it was a little bit more, I'll say violent, with him just trying to hold him and restrict him and everything. Nothing bad happened to him, but it was just a lot of more screaming and what have you. So he gets him into the church, and he brings him to the altar. And it's at that point where he's taking the knife, and he's essentially going to, again, I had it. He's going to do what he, doesn't want to do, but feels that he has to do. And then what happens is the police enter, and at that moment, they say, you know, hold it, and then they fire. And the next scene is at the funeral. Now, interesting enough, the original ending for the movie though was supposed to be different, where Damien was going to die.
Yeah,
And
that's what I read. I didn't know that before. You know,
yeah, I didn't either.
is that does that have credence? Did you read that from a reputable? Because I had never heard it, but they thought it
Yeah,
was more disturbing apparently to have him kill the kid than it
right.
was to have the total downer 70s ending. Of
Think
evil
about all
series.
think about all the sequels that wouldn't have been made, Ross, right?
Yeah, but it's funny because I started thinking about how great would it have been if they had made it with W.C. Fields, you know, who hated kids. Have W.C. Fields up there with Baby Leroy, like, come here, kid. He's gonna like stab him.
On a lighter note, Vince is saying, "Sorry, I got distracted by
Played by Harvey Keitel or Harvey Korman. Sorry, all
you
right,
got your Harvey's confused. Sorry, I got distracted by my cheesesteak from Joe's. Did Roy start the plot yet? We're just starting now, Vince.
I wish I had a cheesesteak. I started a flag about 25 minutes ago.
Christian is saying Martin Ben. I remember Leo McKern came back in the Omen too.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Warren is joining us. Warren, welcome. He's saying this movie scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. Yeah, we were talking about that, Warren. Thanks for joining, Warren. Good to see you out there. Not Ross, though. He made it. And Warren is saying, oops, that's me. There you go. So anyway, what happens then? The next scene that cuts to is at the funeral, and what's happened is both Gregory Peck and his wife are being buried together. So Kathy and Robert Dorn. But what's very unnerving is that Damien is now with another couple, and what we find out is that the couple he's with is the couple is the president and the first lady of the United States. Right. And then he turns and he smiles into the camera and just gives the smile.
Which he kind of backpedal with the sequel. It's like, no, he's not really with the president.
Yeah.
He's with Gregory Peck's brother. Okay.
I guess it was just kind of the president was like the middleman.
He was with William Holden. Yeah.
And then the last thing that they here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
Ooh, chilling.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the baboon scene, Roy.
No, we did not.
You know, the baboon scene is one of the most memorable non sequiturs in the movie.
You're right. Yeah,
non sequitur, but still effective. Yeah, nothing to do with the rest of the movie, but. Yeah.
That's a great point, because what's happening is they're trying to do the family stuff together, and she brings Damien to the park, and it's kind of like where you're driving through and you're seeing the baboons and the animals. It's kind of like if you go to I don't know, I think I did that at the Bronx Zoo with
Great Adventure.
Great Adventure, rather.
The one we went to when I was a kid was you remember Jungle Habitat?
Yes,
in North Jersey.
Yeah,
which lasted a couple of years until they shut it down because people would roll up their windows. People kept getting attacked by the baboons.
That's what happens with this. They're driving along, and then when they see Damien's like looking out, and then the baboons start freaking out. But the interesting thing is, what happened was they actually had a baby baboon in the car, and I guess the baboons were not reacting. But then they showed the baboon through the window, and then the car started being attacked by the baboons. And Lee Remick actually was really reacting. She was very, very scared by all this. So supposedly the reaction was a true one, but what a way to get a reaction out of somebody, right? Again, the method.
Good thing William Friedkin wasn't there.
Yeah, really. So, I don't know. I mean, this movie definitely has its shortcomings, but I think the suspense holds up. I think you have to take it, and you have to kind of let it go with the flow. If you really analyze it and rip it apart, I mean, you'll wind up crossing your arms and putting your seat back.
Smugly. I resemble that. Yeah. Method baboons. Yeah.
Anyway, no.
Yeah. I mean, it was effectively done. I just didn't think it was all that. But
no, that's okay. No.
And you know what? While we're on the subject of blasphemy and subversion, can I make a startling revelation? I don't think I knew until this week. I don't think I really like Richard Donner.
Really?
I thought I loved Richard Donner because yeah, but you know why? The entire reputation for me rests on Superman. Right. Because I realize every other thing that I've seen with Richard Donner did, I'm really lukewarm on or I don't like. And I thought my whole life, it's like, oh, Richard Donner directed it. Because we were talking about Lady Hawk the other week, and I said, oh, I really didn't like that movie. And it's like, oh, wait. And I'm looking at his credits. Oh, The Toy with Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason. And I'm looking at, and with all respect to Richard Donner, because I think Superman's brilliant, He did everybody loves The Goonies. The Goonies. What were some of the other movies he did? Lethal Weapon.
I liked Lethal Weapon.
Entertaining,
I liked the second Lethal Weapon. I thought that was good, but I mean, it's a little calculating, of course. But
yeah, the third one was awful. But yeah, I mean, it was. They were watchable. Did you know he was actually going to direct the like Lethal Weapon, whatever it is, 5, 6 or whatever, before he died? He was like 90 and he was going to do it. Now supposedly, I think Mel Gibson's going to pick it up. But
what's interesting before you go on real quick, that during this interview, because they're talking that I was talking about, that was with Gregory Peck and I can't remember. I think it was called the Cinema Roundtable, and I will post the interview on the show's page, and it's about 30 minutes long. It was very good. The interviewer asks Gregory Peck about Richard Donner and says that he's really, he's done a lot, but has he done a lot of film? And up until that point, he really didn't. He really had concentrated on television. Yeah. And he brought up about one of the things that Gregory Peck brought up was that he did a lot of pilots, and evidently he did the pilot for Kojak, which was not called Kojak at the time. That was something he did. He's known for doing the Twilight Zone episodes.
Right.
So a lot of that was effective. So this was kind of like his springboard where he was kind of getting involved in the movies. And to your point, we love him for what was done with the Superman movie. Gilbert Taylor, who was the responsible for principal photography, he was involved in this film. And then he later, I believe, went on to do Superman, and then that's when he, I believe, and Star Wars, right?
He was involved with Star Wars. He was involved with Flash Gordon. Yeah, he did a lot of genre stuff. But he also worked, I think, with Hitchcock and with Kubrick, and he did Doctor Strangelove. He did Hitchcock's Frenzy. So I mean, he's no slouch. Yeah, and no disrespect to Richard Donner. I mean, I'll always love him for Superman. I just thought I liked him more than I did until I looked at the credits and realized, wait a minute, I didn't like any of these movies. He made a couple of movies before this one hit. He made a film, I think it was called Salt and Pepper, with Sammy Davis Jr. and
yes, that was in the late 60s. And in fact, it's funny because Sherry and I were watching Password like last winter. If you go on, folks, if you go on YouTube and you want to watch all the old Passwords, it's amazing. In fact, I was talking to Bill about this, how you can see a lot of the actors that are out there from that time, and Peter Lawford and Sammy Davis Jr. were on that, and they were talking about this new movie that they were going to be in, and it was Salt and Pepper.
That's right. We were talking about that, yeah, because I think I came across it by mistake on YouTube at some point, and I think I forwarded it to you to say that Richard Donner done it. He said, "Oh my God, I just saw this on Password."
Yeah, and I think they filmed that in '67 or '68. I'm guessing. I think that's
okay. And he did a Charles Bronson film. I think it was called Lola. So he had experience, but a salt and pepper baseball movie, but it was, this is the one that made him.
Yeah, this put him on the map.
And thank God for it, because he would have never made Superman if not for this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a success, and like we were saying earlier about Gregory Peck. I mean, it really turned out very well for him too. I mean, and it's an example of getting the profits. Somebody else was quoted about doing that, and I think Lou told me the story. Gary Lockwood did something similar with 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he did very well as a result of that, because he had gotten paid, I think, dividends, or whatever you want to say, percentages of the film's sale, and we all know how well that film did back in the day. The Haggis thing I came across myself once in the YouTube. Hope my wife. Oh my God, John. Yeah, but anyway. So, and then Ross.
Yes.
Ray Goldsmith.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the music. Yeah, yeah. Well, that was one of the key elements of the movie. But again, I was kind of chuckling at it. The evil monks chanting satanic subversions of the mass in Latin. Ave Satani. Apparently, Ave Satani was the only horror song, the only song from a horror movie in Latin, no less, that was nominated for Best Original Song at the Academy Awards. Now, I have to go back and search on YouTube, because I don't remember. Surely there must have been a production number or something in which they incorporated Ave Satani at the Oscars. I didn't have a chance to Google that. But this was his only Oscar winner, though. He won for Best Original Score, not for the song. But it was, he was, Jerry Goldsmith, of course, one of the great film composers, of all time, not just his day, but in his day. Unfortunately, he came up parallel to John Williams, and you had people like Elmer Bernstein, you had all kinds of great film composers at that time. So the competition was stiff. And he thought, actually, in 1975, he finally had a lock on the Oscar, because he was very proud of a score for The Wind and the Lion, the film that Sean Connery had made with Candice Bergen, and it was John Milius directed it, the guy who did Conan the Barbarian. So he thought, oh boy, I finally got my shot at the Oscar. And then he went to
Jaws.
Yeah, I told you. Then he went to see Jaws. As soon as the lights went down, he knew he lost. He was never going to get the Oscar.
John. It reminds me of back in the day when I used to be in a bowling, and this is for you, Bill, mixed doubles bowling league. And Bill and Vince, they'll get a kick out of that. And back in the day when I used to bowl, and I remember being on this classic bowling league. It was on Thursday nights, and what happened was they had this thing where if you would put in like maybe $5, and what you were trying to do is, it was for the high game. And I went in through my best ever. I threw a 268. I had the first 8 strikes in a row, and there's only 12. You can only get 12 strikes in a bowling game. And I thought I was going to get a 300 that night. If I was ever going to get a 300, it would have been that. Got the first 8. Then I think I had a 9 miss and an 8, or a 9 miss and then it was a 9 miss and then a strike. Anyway, it was like 10 strikes out of 12 for the game. I wound up with a 268, and then the guy that I was bowling with threw a 279, and which was just unheard of. And then he goes to me, "Good game," and I was just like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, you know what would have been really unnerving is if you had looked up on the overhead and seen somebody had superimposed your picture there, and that the strike would have gone right through your, like this.
Here come the suits. Oh shoot, that was good, Ross. That was like 19. I was like 22 years old. That was like 1988.
Glory days. Yeah.
Glory days. Don't make me sing, Ross. But if you want to hear me sing, I'll do that plug later. The Omen 4, Roy Goes Bowling. Thanks, Randy.
So Goldsmith also had a reputation for writing very quickly. You know, he was a guy that they would turn to when they chucked people's scores and they needed somebody to come up with the score. He wrote the score for Chinatown in 10 days.
Wow.
And he stepped in at the last minute, I know, to do Air Force One when they didn't like Randy Newman's score. So, you know, he had a remarkable facility. You know, he knew when he had to get something done, he could sit down and do it. But with the Omen, for some reason, he was having a little bit of a block. It's like, oh man, I got to come up with something good for this. And his wife recalled that he was walking through the room then at some point, and he says, I hear voices, he says to her. And at that point, he was doing his whole Ave Satani thing. So he was there translating the mass, you know, trying to do the satanic mass in Latin. And he recorded it and everything. But apparently, like, somebody like totally dissected the thing, and he's got all the tenses wrong, and it's kind of like gibberish Latin, you know. So, but it's very effective. I mean, it's an unforgettable score. You know, this gets imitated constantly, or did.
It totally worked. I mean, it was very.
Yeah. So, you know, and Jerry Goldsmith, everybody knows who he is. You guys are all Star Trek fans. You know Jerry Goldsmith. But, you know, he did Chinatown, and he did Papillon, and he did Boys from Brazil, and he did, I don't know.
Well, it's funny you said you just mentioned that he did Air Force One, because I was listening in the car.
Patton, he did, yeah, and MacArthur, yeah.
It's very, very majestic themes that he puts out. Very, very grand, very large.
Yeah. Oh, and he did something in this film that was so characteristically 70s that we don't get anymore. You know, we have the horror, of course, of the chanting voices, but in the scenes with the family, you have the intimacy and the warm lyrical themes and stuff like that. There were always moments in these movies when you could breathe and kind of, you know, sense that humanity, because otherwise you wouldn't care about the characters at all.
Right.
I mean, it's not just all droning through the whole score. John Williams does it all the time too. There's always a scene. It doesn't matter what the movie. It could be Jaws 2, but there's always a scene where you know, he's got like a light G Life is Grand kind of sequence that he scores. It's like,
well, he did that with the scene of them in the park, because at the beginning of the film, they're trying to do the whole family type of scenario where they're all together and they're just being a happy family, and it's very like idealistic. And you know, it's like the calm before the storm, because you're waiting for everything to come down. But to your point about that, though, it's that type of background music that's playing, and it's just like very wholesome, I guess, is what I'm looking for the description. And it works.
Yeah. I mean, it heightens the horror and the tragedy when you have your you know, it's kind of like the David Lynch thing where you have your suburban, you know, the manicured lawns and the white picket fences, and then you go and you look at the underbelly. You know what I mean? It's turn the whole thing upside down and see what's under here.
It's all gutted.
Yeah.
Now, did he do the score for the final conflict also?
I think Jerry Goldsmith did. Yeah, he did the music for all three of the first three of the Omen things. Yeah. Gotcha. He knew who was buttering his bread.
Oh boy.
Well, yeah, and then Star Trek came along. It's like, I'll do 50 Star Treks. Yeah.
Still going strong.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. Well, I am going to go to the shout outs portion of the show. So, folks, if you have any other comments that you'd like to post out about the movie, please do so. And then what we'll do is we'll come back just to wrap things up a bit. And want to give a shout out to Mike and Mary Beth from Sci-Fi Distilled. They are on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and they will be back on the 19th to discuss the 2018 film, The Meg. I actually had never heard of this film, and I was just asking Vince about it. Had you heard of this, Ross?
I saw the trailer for it a couple of times in the movies. Yeah.
So, yeah, I had no clue. I had no clue about it, but
maybe it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, but anyway,
like it might have been. Yeah,
Mike and Mary Beth will be discussing that, and that'll be on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on Distilled, and that's Eastern Daylight Time. So check it out. Next, I want to give a shout out to our friend at Country Gate Playhouse, and that is the one and only Mr. Bill Scarrato. And Bill is out there tonight. And Bill is the owner of Country Gate. And for information first about the theater, you can go to www.countrygate.org, or you can go to Bill's website page, which is www.billscarrato.com. So the theater was hit just like other theaters were across the country and the world, and due to COVID. So things are starting to slowly come back. And one of the things that Bill did back in July was organize a film festival. And he's done the same thing for this month. Instead of being of the film noir that was taking place in July, this is going to be the films of, I'll say, horror for the month of October. And this all started last week with the premiere at the theater. This was on October 8th, and he showcased the film Night of the Living Dead, which was the first film by George A. Romero. And that was last Saturday. Now, this Saturday, October 15th, which is tomorrow at 8 p.m., the film that's going to be showcased is going to be Nosferatu. Am I pronouncing that right, Ross?
Oh, Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. There we go. I got
Nosferatu,
it.
yeah.
Nosferatu. Now, this is a 100-year-old film that's actually celebrated this year. I believe it's a silent movie. And again, 1922. And it's very close to Bram Stoker's Dracula as far as the character of the vampire. So anyway, this film is going to be showcased. And Country Gate alumni, who is Bill Nutt, Mr. Bill Nutt, is going to be actually doing a summary before the movie, just to bring everybody up to speed about what it's going to be about. And then the film will be shown. So definitely check it out if you are in the Belvedere area tomorrow. And again, that will be at 8 p.m. Next week, it's going to be followed up with, on the 22nd, Little Shop of Horrors. This is the 1960 film. This is the, I'll say, horror/comedy film. It is not the musical. And then on October 29th and October 30th, the 29th, it'll be at 8 p.m. And the 30th, it will be at 2 p.m. for a matinee. Then the last film in this series is going to be Plan 9 from Outer Space, but it's The Experience. It's going to be kind of mystery science fiction 3000 meets Rocky Horror. So it's going to be a fun time. The film is going to be shown, and Country Gate players will be a part of this as far as being part of this production. So we will be there to partake in that, myself included, along with some other folks out there. So if you, again, are in the area for this week, next week, and the following week, definitely check it out. And again, information you can get at www.countrygate.org or www.billscarrato.com. And all proceeds are, a $10 donation for coming to the theater is appreciated, and it does help to support the theater with everything that it's gone through from COVID this past year. So we appreciate that. Next, I want to give a shout out to Captain Phil's Planet, WUSB-FM, Stony Brook, New York. Captain Phil's not out there tonight, but he is on the air Friday nights from 9 to 11:30 p.m. And he's also on alternating Thursdays between 3 and 5 p.m. You can catch Captain Phil. Next, I want to give a shout out to Todd Morton and Gordon Moriguchi, who do Todd's Corner. It's been on hiatus for a little bit. Todd's working on getting the show back on, looking to come on in the next weeks ahead. They broadcast on Facebook as well as YouTube, and they are on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So definitely check them out. I also want to give a shout out to Studio One Thrift. And again, I was talking about them last week, and this is with Snow and Martha. They've actually really done a lot with putting together this business. It's an online business in which you can actually get all seasons of wear all year long. Visiting their website. They have quality, stylish, affordable clothing for men as well as women. And again, you can order this online. So if you check their website out, all you have to do is go to www.studioonethrift.com. And help support them, and you will definitely find a lot of good deals in the merchandise that they are selling. So definitely check them out. And then Ross, if you can let everybody know what you have going on for the weekend.
All right. Well, these are the two shows I have on WWFM, the Classical Network. Picture Perfect is the movie music show. And tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, I'll be having all films that use the harpsichord on their soundtracks in kind of a mischievous way, kind of a wry sense to these films that are mostly mysteries or thrillers. Before Angela Lansbury did Murder, She Wrote, Dame Margaret Rutherford played Miss Marple in a series of films in the 60s where she played, Miss Marple in a film called Murder, She Said. Saw some music from that by Ron Goodwin. Some music from Sleuth. Is it Anthony Schaffer, I think, wrote that? The guy who wrote The Wicker Man, I believe? Or did I get that mixed up with Peter Schaffer? One of them wrote Sleuth. I think it's Anthony Schaffer. John Addison wrote the music. Laurence Olivier, Michael Caine in the movie. Dead Ringer was a Betty Davis film in which he plays, evil twins. Andre Previn wrote the music for that. And Family Plot was Alfred Hitchcock's last film. John Williams was the composer. And in all of these scores, they have, kind of a wacky, fusty-sounding harpsichord. So I'll be featuring all of those tomorrow night on Picture Perfect at 6 o'clock. You can hear it at wwfm.org or find the local frequencies there at the website. And then on Sunday night on the Lost Chord at 10 o'clock, that's unusual and neglected repertoire. It's all music from Romania. And the central piece on the hour will be by George Ligeti, who, a lot of you will recognize the name from 2001: A Space Odyssey. He was a Transylvanian composer, and I've got one of his pieces, not one of the avant-garde works, but an earlier work called the Concert Romanesque on that program, along with some other native Romanian composers. That's Romania Mania, Sunday night at 10 on the Lost Chord. And again, the website is wwfm.org. If you can't catch them at the times listed, they'll be posted as webcasts a few days later. And I'll write about them on my Facebook page. Tomorrow morning, I'll promote Picture Perfect. And on Sunday morning, I'll write more about the Lost Chord at Classic Ross Amico. Thanks, Roy.
Awesome. Thanks, Ross.
Thanks.
And just to let everybody know, we are going to continue our dive into Halloween month. And Ross and I will be back next Friday. And joining us will be Bill Scarrato. And we will be discussing the 1968 classic, Night of the Living Dead. So it's going to be great to have Bill back on the show. Bill was actually on the second episode of this show back when it started out. And that was almost 2.5 years ago, which is kind of crazy in itself. So it's going to be nice to have Bill joining back. And we had actually discussed the Twilight Zone back in the day. So very much looking forward to that. And this is a classic. So definitely, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I actually had not seen it from beginning to end up until recently. So definitely a lot of fun. And then the following week, Ross and I will be welcoming for our back Mike and Mary Beth for our special crossover episode that
the Doberman Gang. I'm sorry.
And we'll be discussing the Munsters.
The Munsters
series.
I'm sorry.
From 1964 to 1966. So we'll be discussing that. So definitely check us out. And like I said, Mike and Mary Beth will be on with us then. So. And then lastly, I just want to again tell everybody and give a big thank you to our viewers out there, our supporters. Again, as a reminder, we are not only broadcasting on Facebook, which we are doing now, but we are also on YouTube as well as Twitter. So if you do have a Facebook account, please make sure to follow and like, and please share the show too if you have folks that you think would enjoy it. And then if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you can please do that, as well as Twitter. If you have a Twitter account, again, there is no charge associated with it. It is free, but it would definitely be help the show in regards to just getting the word out there. So we really do appreciate it and appreciate all the support over the last 2.5 years. So thank you so much for that. And just coming back to some of the comments, Ross, let's see. Christian is saying he finally saw the documentary Film Worker in 2018 about Stanley Kubrick's assistant, Leon Vitelli. And thank you, Bill, for that. And we appreciate it. And we're looking forward to having you on the show next week. And Lou, thank you, and hoping you enjoyed it. And Matt, as always, although he's saying I was distracted by picnic prep for a group of 70 nutcases.
So are we bringing everybody?
Yeah, everybody show up at Matt's.
Anthony Schaffer, good, thank you.
Oh, and Liz is saying Tony Anholt starred in that play on stage for many years. Oh, that's kind of cool. And Tony Anholt, of course, was on Space 1999. And thank you, Dennis. Glad everybody enjoyed the show. So anyway, in regards to last minute comments, I'm not seeing anything. So Ross, any last words about the Omen? Are you all geared up to do the Omen too?
Next week we'll do the Omen. It was effectively done. Just because I didn't find it scary, I'm glad that other people were freaked out by it. But I think everybody needs to know it, though, because it is like be culturally literate. You need to know the Omen, because there were just too many, at least for decades, there are too many references and too many allusions to the film.
But it is interesting, though, how a lot of those references became the norm, or it was almost like it wasn't just lore. It was
right.
It's almost like it became like
it became canon.
Yeah, exactly.
You have the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Omen. Take out the Book of Revelation and put in the Omen, because that's in people's consciousnesses. They think that's really in the Bible.
Yeah, exactly. Dick Van Dyke never could make the transition from the ugly Dushan to the Omen. Oh boy. Liz, thanks. Yeah, I think another shout out to Liz and to our UK viewers out there too. Thanks for staying up with us. I know it's very late out there. We do appreciate that, because right now, here it's 9:30, a little after 9:30. So there, it's about 1:30 in the morning. So we do appreciate that.
Good sports. Thank you.
Thank you. So everybody, have a great rest of the week. Hopefully this week is a better week on many levels. And and just stay safe. And gear up for the Halloween, eve that it'll be approaching in about 2 weeks. And with that, live long and prosper.
Have a good weekend at Matt's house.
Wonder how many viewers we're going to see there, Ross.
I'm going to be the only one, I think.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.